What is going on, Colts Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Well, guys, it is Victory Monday. Colts 2-0 for the first time since 2009, which is crazy in itself. Colts win a thriller yesterday in Denver. If you haven't already seen my game recap for that, be sure to hop over to that here. But guys, today with the Colts' latest win, I wanted to talk about some studs and duds from Sunday's game because there certainly were some on both sides of the field. And really, guys, in a game like this where it's close, you knew there was going to be some on both sides. So with that being said, we're going to hop right into this. But before we do that, just want to remind you guys this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So be sure to hop over to FanDuel, guys, for the Monday night action here. There's 2 games tonight. So if you're wanting to make any bets here to wrap up week 2, be sure to head over to FanDuel and check out all they've got going on over there. But let's jump into this, guys. I want to actually start with the duds. Just get the bad out of the way and then talk about some of the studs, because when there is a win, there's going to be a few more studs than duds. But when it's a game like this, there's certainly going to be a fair amount of duds as well. So we'll start with the first stud that I have, and I really felt like the run defense for the Indianapolis Colts was not good against the Denver Broncos. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts allowed over 5.5 yards per carry to J.K. Dobbins. I mean, really, whatever he wanted to do running the football, he was able to do. Not just him, Bo Nix also had a couple runs as well. So between the two of them, right near 100 yards. Troy Franklin had a carry for 11 yards. I will say they did a pretty good job on R.J. Harvey, only 8 yards on 5 carries. But when you look at it in its totality, you definitely expect better from this Colts run defense. And I definitely had questions after how the Dolphins were able to be efficient, even though they didn't run the football a ton. I was kind of curious, and the Colts run defense really struggled, and Miami kept being able to do whatever they wanted to do. Even in that second half when the Colts defense played a little bit better, their run defense still really struggled. So that is definitely a concern for me. I really just feel like the Colts weren't able to do a whole lot to disrupt, and it just felt like wherever it was going, the Broncos offensive line was opening up gaping wide holes for J.K. Dobbins to run the football. So that is definitely a concern for me. I was not impressed with this Colts defensive line very much at all when it came to the run stopping. They made a few plays, but in total, the front seven, I was very, very disappointed with how they did not stop the run for the majority of this game. So that certainly has to improve. I mean, you could probably just throw the whole defense on here for a dud, but I'll talk individually about some things on the defense when it comes to that. But the first one I have here, the run defense, wasn't great. J.K. Dobbins ran the football effectively all day long, and you got lucky a little bit with some of the things that did end up happening because Denver was being very efficient running the football against you, and you definitely have to figure that out here going into week 3. So run defense is the first thing I have here, guys. The second thing with this defensive line, I'm going to say it, this defensive line in general was just an absolute bust, especially the edge position was just bad. Bad. Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, they were all bad getting after the quarterback, and they did not pressure Bo Nix hardly at all. They had 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks, 0 sacks. And I know with how much you invested, even though you don't have Latu, frankly, that is a big disappointment. I was very disappointed in these edge rush guys and this defensive line not being able to get to the quarterback at all. And, you know, if this continues, you're going to have to address it some other way. You can't keep investing in these draft picks, man, because these guys just aren't panning out. I mean, it's just not working out right now. And even a guy like Ebukam, I was surprised, didn't really do anything when it came to getting after the quarterback. So pass rush was non-existent. Bo Nix was comfortable all day long. And you saw he sliced and diced this Colts defense, and especially when you were without Latu and your top corner in Charvarius Ward, you knew that was going to potentially be a problem. And if you couldn't get after the quarterback, it was going to even be a bigger problem. And that was the case there for the Indianapolis Colts. So that was definitely very disappointing, a very big dud. That defensive line, especially the pass rushers, huge duds in this game, and very, very, very disappointed in those guys. All right, well, let's continue on. I mentioned the secondary. Xavier Howard was going to have to be that guy who's going to be the number one corner, and he got picked on early and often in this game. I mean, he got burnt on a touchdown. He got flagged 3 times on the same drive that helped Denver score a touchdown. I mean, there was a third down where he held a guy and got a penalty, and the Colts had to stop initially. He didn't even have to do it. It just seemed like a very, very, very poor game from Xavier Howard. I do think in the second half he played a little bit better, but still. I mean, that first half, he was a huge reason why Denver kept scoring. It's just he couldn't stay on guys. He couldn't, not hold or commit a penalty. And so it was a big problem. He certainly looked 32 and like a guy who didn't play football last year. So they got to figure that out. And I am very curious, once Charvarius Ward does return, is it Xavier Howard at that number 2 corner? Do the Colts try it something different? Because Howard was almost unplayable in that first half. And do they give a guy like Mekhi Blackman, who I thought was better, and I don't think he could have been worse than Xavier Howard, do they give him a chance at number 2 outside corner here with obviously Jalen Jones going to miss some time and is being on the IR, so he's going to miss the next couple of weeks and be back at minimum week 6. So what are they going to do in the meantime? Who's going to be that number 2 outside corner? I just know Xavier Howard, if that performance continues, he cannot be on the field. He just can't. It was that bad. But unfortunately, I don't feel like the Colts had much of a choice yesterday with just the amount of injuries they have to that cornerback room. So I don't know. Maybe they try to make another free agent signing to somewhere if this continues. I'm not entirely sure, guys. But yeah, all that to say, Xavier Howard was an absolute liability out there, and they knew it. Denver knew it. Credit to them, Sean Payton, Bo Nix. They knew it, and they attacked it. And it benefited them in that first half. So, yeah, Xavier Howard certainly had his fair share of struggles here against this Denver passing attack, and they really did whatever they wanted against him for the majority of that game. Like I said, second half a little bit better. I mean, Denver really wasn't able to do much outside of that first score at the start of the third quarter. So credit to where it's due. Yeah, definitely wasn't a fan of the secondary. Xavier Howard got picked on, like I said, all day long there. And then I have 2 more things when it comes to the duds here. The first one was just the penalties. It felt like the penalties in the crucial moments for this game really derailed some drives for the Indianapolis Colts on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we just talked about with Xavier Howard penalties, 3 straight penalties on one drive alone. That really was the difference, in my opinion, between the Broncos settling for 3 and scoring 6. So that definitely was a huge deal. And then on the offensive side of the ball, especially in the red zone, Colts had a few opportunities, but some penalties, some mistakes. Those really completely nullified those drives. And again, points are points, but that's the difference between scoring 3 and scoring 6. So, yeah, the penalties were definitely crucial. There's a couple of holding penalties on Bernard Ryman that really derailed a drive near the end of that game that you really hoped would be a time when you punched in for 6, but you had to settle for 3. And fortunately, the Colts were able to weather the storm. And I guess if you're looking for a silver lining, it's that the Colts have typically been pretty good under Shane Steichen when it comes to that department. When it comes to the penalties, the Colts have been pretty disciplined for the most part. Again, you're always going to have games that happen that pop up eventually, like yesterday's performance, for example. But typically, the Colts have been pretty disciplined under Shane Steichen for the most part when it comes to the penalty side of things. So hopefully that was just an outlier game, guys, but definitely was a game the Colts can't repeat if they want to continue to win, because that was really detrimental from you really maybe taking the lead earlier or potentially not even making it a ball game if you punch it in a couple more times. So definitely a big deal there for both sides of the ball. Got to clean that up moving forward. Penalties were definitely a killer yesterday in the crucial moments. So that is one thing when it comes to the duds. And then the final thing that I have to say when it comes to the duds is I really disagreed with the ending of that game and how Shane Steichen handled that. I really felt like it wasn't wise to run the football 3 straight times there to end that game and set your kicker up with not really a great opportunity kicking a 60-yard field goal. I really felt like you needed to get at least 10 to 15 more yards, and fortunately enough, you were able to get that because of that leverage penalty that really saved your butt if you're Shane Steichen. Because if that doesn't happen, Spencer Schrader misses that, and the Colts are 1-1, and Shane Steichen looks like an idiot. So fortunate to get that. You're never going to apologize for getting that sort of gift like that, but from Shane Steichen's standpoint, that late game decisions, it was baffling to me. It was very, very stupid. And I think I'm a little concerned about Shane Steichen's ability late in games to be able to be competent. I really am, because
that was really, really egregious from Steichen. And he got bailed out at the end there, but definitely thought that was very, very poor from Shane Steichen when it came to the end of that game. And you just got fortunate again. But you know what? Like, it's a win. A win's a win. You'll take it. But moving forward, Shane Steichen has to be better. He has to hold himself accountable and realize that was very stupid. And you can't afford to do that because you're not always going to be gifted that. And you could have cost your team a win there by not being wise as a play caller. So that's just my opinion. Again, I get a little fired up there, but yeah, a win's a win. You'll take it. But Steichen, got to be better. Expect better from him. That was very stupid to end that game. You got fortunate. All right, let's continue on now. Let's jump into some of the positives because there were a ton of positives here for the Colts. When you win, there's a lot of positives we need to talk about. So the first one has to be a guy that I will fully admit has completely proved me wrong. Daniel Jones, again, looked very, very sound, very, very good throwing the football. He looked relaxed in the pocket. He was delivering strikes all day long. And mind you, this isn't a Miami defense that has Storm Duck out there. No, this is a legitimate defense with one of the best cover corners in the NFL in Patrick Surtain, a legitimate defensive coordinator. Like, they have what you need for a defense. They were a top 3 defense last year. And to the Colts' credit, they were able to weather the storm. Daniel Jones was able to, even when there was a few times when pressure was in his face, able to still stand strong in the pocket, make some very, very critical throws. And also a big thing that Daniel Jones didn't do in preseason and didn't do in training camp is he threw the ball down the field. He had a huge pass to Alec Pierce down the field that I frankly didn't expect him to throw these passes and have these things. I thought it was going to be a lot more Gardner Minshew-esque where he almost, I don't want to say refused, but he almost didn't really do that. He would favor throwing it down the field a couple yards as opposed to a 30, 40-yard pass down the field. But Daniel Jones he's been wheeling and dealing through the first couple weeks here. So I want to give him credit there. And the good thing about Daniel Jones is he also has a little bit of mobility to him, right? He scrambled a couple times and got a few first downs in this game. He was able to avoid a little bit of more of the pressure than even, especially Joe Flacco last year. Not quite Anthony Richardson-esque, but he was still able to escape the pressure and use his legs when necessary. And he spread the ball around to all these different receivers, to, your receivers you have, to your tight ends, who's able to really spread the ball around. And that's a great, great sign for the Indianapolis Colts to be able to have all these capable receivers and have a quarterback that's willing and able to get them the football. That was my biggest question coming into this year. Is Daniel Jones going to be able to get the Colts weapons of football? Because we knew the Colts had talent all the way around, but the question was that quarterback. And so far through 2 weeks, Danny Dimes has been absolutely able to do that. And I'll be honest, he's proved me and a lot of people wrong. And I've said it. I said it in the live stream. I'll say it here. I am more than happy to eat crow in this situation because Danny Dimes, if he continues to look the way that he's looked through 2 weeks, I will happily say I was wrong every single game this year. So back-to-back very strong weeks from Daniel Jones. And that's very, very, very encouraging if you're a Colts fan to see Daniel Jones just be methodical and be consistent throwing the football. So definitely very encouraging from that standpoint there when it comes to Daniel Jones. And hopefully he can continue that here going into Tennessee. So, yeah, really strong performance from Daniel Jones in this game. Another really strong performance that we saw was Jonathan Taylor running the football. And not just running the football, but also catching the football, which we didn't see last year hardly at all. So Jonathan Taylor on the day, over 200 yards, all-purpose. He had 165 rushing yards, averaged 6.6 yards per carry in this game. He had a huge 68-yard run near the end of the game that he ripped down the sidelines that put the Colts in scoring position. And then he also had 50 yards receiving and a receiving touchdown. So JT, we knew the vintage game was going to happen eventually. Really felt like in week 1, he had a couple runs, but for the most part, he was fairly subdued in that game. Didn't have 100 yards rushing. I think it was around 75 or so in that game. So he had a couple moments, and really because you were putting the pounding you were on the Miami Dolphins in that second half, you didn't really need him to get to that point. You had DJ getting a majority and bulk of the carries there in that second half. But, yeah, today JT looked fantastic against the Denver Broncos, and we knew he had success last year in that matchup, but today he took it to another level in week 2 against Denver. So, yeah, 165 rushing yards for JT, had that huge run, like I said, but really was cooking them all day long and really proved his worth in not just the running game, but also in the passing game. So if you can get him and continue to be involved in the passing game like you have the first 2 weeks, that just takes this offense to a whole nother level to have him as a threat out of the backfield. I mean, we knew that he could do it. We saw him do it back in 2021, didn't we? We saw him in that Baltimore game take that screen pass and run it all the way down the field for a touchdown, but he hasn't really done it the last couple of years. So it's good to get him back catching the football and being efficient in that way. So, yeah, absolutely love to see that from Jonathan Taylor, and hopefully that continues for both sides, for running the football and for catching the football as well, because that just opens up your offense to so many more possibilities if you're Shane Steichen. All right, let's continue on talking about another stud, and I mentioned Daniel Jones spreading the football around to so many different guys, and his leading receiver again was rookie tight end Tyler Warren. He had 4 catches, 79 yards. He had a massive 41-yard catch during this game, and he just looks as advertised. I mean, there's a reason why we were all amped up that the Colts were able to get Tyler Warren when they were able to get him in round 1, is because he looks as good, if not better, than advertised. I mean, this dude does everything. He catches the football, but also he blocks his tail off. He's a huge reason why the Colts were able to run as well as they did here in this game. You know, I specifically remember a play in this game where Jonathan Taylor's driving for a first down. He's a couple yards short. All of a sudden, in comes Tyler Warren flying in with the hair blowing in the wind, and he comes and he hits the pile and drives JT forward for a couple more yards. And it's like, that kind of stuff is stuff you just can't teach. That's just the type of player that Tyler Warren is. He is fantastic at all that he does. And honestly, guys, when looking at the Colts offense from a year ago, Tyler Warren was really the missing piece the Colts had outside of obviously quarterback. He was the missing piece in this offense to make it go, is a really reliable tight end, and not just reliable, a really, really good, borderline elite tight end already. Tyler Warren has been that good, ladies and gentlemen, and he continues to be that good. And it's very obvious he's not going away anytime soon. Tyler Warren's going to continue to be a focal point for this offense, and really been a huge reason why this offense has been able to be as consistent and as efficient as it has been. Because, like I said, he catches the football, but also he blocks his tail off as well to make the offense go. So Tyler Warren looking as good as advertised here through 2 weeks, and I'm excited to continue to see him grow into the player he's going to become. But he is such a valuable piece of this Colts offense. There's a reason why we were all so excited to get him there back in April. All right. I have 2 more things when it comes to the pros, some of the studs here for the Colts game here in week 2 in this victory. Got to talk about this offensive line. Guys, we had so many people saying, oh my gosh, the Denver Broncos are going to come in and they're going to get to Daniel Jones early. I mean, they got to Cam Ward 6 times. I even had some Broncos guests on. One Broncos guest said that they were going to have 5 or 6 sacks on Daniel Jones in this game. And I was like, well, you can believe what you want, man, but I think the Colts are going to be just fine. They were. Daniel Jones got sacked, I think, only 1 time again. So, again, 2 sacks through 2 games with this offensive line. You're going to take that. And 2, I mean, let's face it, 2 defensive lines that definitely have a lot of talent on them that you've been facing. But credit where it's due, man. The Colts offensive line, even though I don't think it was as efficient as it was against the Miami Dolphins, there certainly were a few more moments where Denver was able to get some pressure, and obviously Daniel Jones was able to escape that or get the ball out quickly, which definitely helped. But in a game where you knew that Denver was amped up from what they did against Cam Ward last week, you knew they were going to come and they were going to send the blitz. They were going to do those things. You knew that was happening. You knew that was coming. And shout out to that offensive line with 2 new starters this year. They did exactly what they needed to do when it came to protecting Daniel Jones, giving him the time he needed to find wide open guys and help him find his first 300-yard performance since early 2023. I didn't mention that earlier. I want to throw that in here. The offensive line is a big reason why. Oh, and by the way, they also opened up the running attack for Jonathan Taylor to rush for over 150 yards in this one as well. So shout out to the offensive line with 2 new starters in it. They did a fantastic job. I thought the tackles had moments, but I thought for the most part it was good. And then obviously Quentin Nelson doing what he did. I know he went down in that game on a screen pass but he came back in, so he seems like he's good to go, which is definitely good stuff there. But yeah, this offensive line continues to be really, really good for the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm excited to see how this unit continues to grow moving forward because they face two pretty stout front sevens, and they've done their job and then some. And there's a reason why the Colts have one of the best offenses in the NFL. I mean, honestly, it lives and dies with this offensive line and what they do or don't do. So want to give them a shout out again. They did a fantastic job against the Denver Broncos, against a very, very good defensive front. And I want to give them a special shout out for that because everything happens or doesn't happen based on how this offensive line looks. I also want to talk about as bad as the defense looked last week, or as bad as the defense looked on Sunday against the Denver Broncos, I have to say that I really like the play of both the safeties, and that, of course, is both Cameron Bynum, who had that huge pick to prevent the 3 points at the minimum in that game, and obviously an elite celebration from Cameron Bynum. He continues to have those. And then you got to talk about Nick Cross, who I thought, honestly, was probably my defensive player MVP of the game for the Colts. He had some very nice plays, both in the running game and in coverage. I really felt like he was everywhere. He was flying around the football, and he looks really good. And so I really think, guys, that, at the best, I think this is one of the better safety tandems in football between Bynum and Nick Cross. Both guys playing at very high levels right now. Both guys doing what they need to do. And I'm excited to see how this young duo, I'll add, continues to work together in tandem here to potentially continue to make plays in the future for this Colts team. But want to give them both a shout out. They both were really, really good in this game. And then, of course, I have to talk about Spencer Schrader. I mean, 5 of 5 in this game, hit the game winner, 45-yarder. Spencer Schrader continues to be perfect on the year for the Indianapolis Colts. And what a breath of fresh air, honestly, guys, to see Spencer Schrader doing as well as he did and how he's done through 2 weeks. I mean, we know as Colts fans, we've held our breath the last number of years whenever a Colts kicker's gone out there. So it is very, very good to have a kicker that you feel like you can trust, you can rely on. And for the most part, he's been dead accurate on pretty much every one of his kicks. So shout out to Spencer Schrader. What a good performance from him in this game. Again, like I said, perfect on the year for the Indianapolis Colts through 2 weeks. And he's definitely had his work cut out for him. He's kicked a lot here through 2 weeks. So want to give him a shout out there. But yeah, guys, I really think that's it here for this Colts victory. Again, it was a nail biter right to the end. What a crazy couple minutes to end that game. But Colts come out victorious. Like I said at the beginning, their first 2-0 start since 2009. It has been that long. So Colts win. Colts have a chance here to make it 3-0 down against their division rival, the 0-2 Tennessee Titans down in Nashville. So we'll see if they can continue that streak, continue to remain undefeated. Again, shout out to FanDuel, guys. Be sure to go check out all they have here for these Monday night matchups. But wanted to say thank you, guys, for all your support. And the channel's been doing awesome. You guys are fantastic. So just wanted to say thank you for that. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff, so you know when we drop fresh content just like this. But again, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And as always, go Colts.